Story 1. Saruman believes it is only great power that can hold evil in check, but that is not what I have found. It is the small, everyday deeds of ordinary folk that keep the darkness at bay. Small acts of kindness and love. Gandalf. Story 2. Just for a fun one, on the show Friends, someone asks Phoebe if she wants to go with them. She said, "I wish I could, but I really don't want to. My family always says that when we want to say no but don't want to hurt someone's feelings." Story 3. People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people. Story 4. Life is pain. Anyone who tells you otherwise is selling something. Story 5. World's greatest dad. I used to think that the worst thing in life was to end up alone. It's not. The worst thing in life is to end up with people who make you feel alone. Robin Williams. Story 6. You have to remember that these are simple farmers, people of the land, the common clay of the New West morons. Story 7. I wish the ring, meaning my current problems, had never come to me. I wish none of this had ever happened. So do all who live to see such times, but that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us. I am going to die someday, maybe soon, but I will try to make the world better while I am here. It is dark out there, and the only light is what we make. Story 8. What is grief but love persevering? I did not expect Marvel to hit me so hard. Story 9. The job is yours until you die or I find someone better. Starship Troopers. A great commentary on today's workplace. Story 10. In The Untethered Soul, the author asks, to paraphrase, if your inner voice were a real person sitting on your couch, would you ever invite them into your home? As someone who struggles with negative self-talk, I find this very helpful. Story 11. By Grabthar's Hammer, by the sons of Warvan, you shall be avenged. Story 12. We have nightmares so that we can learn to be brave in the waking world. Lord of the Dream. As someone who suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder, I wish it were that simple, bro. Story 13. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us. Gandalf. Story 14. Sometimes you have to do the right thing even if you lose. Story 15. A person is smart. People are dumb, panicky, dangerous animals, and you know it. 1,500 years ago, everybody knew the Earth was the center of the universe. 500 years ago, everybody knew the Earth was flat. 15 minutes ago, you knew that humans were alone on this planet. Imagine what you will know tomorrow. Story 16. You know the very powerful and the very stupid have one thing in common. They don't alter their views to fit the facts. They alter the facts to fit their views, which can be uncomfortable if you happen to be one of the facts that need altering. The Doctor, the Face of Evil. Story 17. There is a very interesting debate raging at the moment about the nature of sin, for example, said Oates. And what do they think? Are they against it? Said Granny Weatherwax. It's not as simple as that. It's not a black and white issue. There are so many shades of gray. Nope. Pardon. There are no grays, only white that's gotten grubby. I'm surprised you don't know that. And sin, young man, is when you treat people as things, including yourself. That's what sin is. It's a lot more complicated than that dash. No, it ain't. When people say things are a lot more complicated than that, they mean they're getting worried that they won't like the truth. Oh, I'm sure there are worse crimes dash. But it starts with thinking about people as things. Story 18. Sir, are you classified as human? Negative. I am a meat popsicle. I feel this deep inside. I don't know if I'm human. Just being a meat popsicle would be enough some days. Story 19. If a man acts like he does not care, he genuinely does not care. No exceptions. Story 20. Doctor Who. The Zygon inversion. The Doctor, because it is always the same. When you fire the first shot, no matter how right you feel, you have no idea who is going to die. You do not know whose children are going to scream and burn, how many hearts will be broken, how many lives will be shattered, or how much blood will spill before everybody does what they were always going to have to do from the very beginning. Sit down and talk. This was the moment for me when Peter Capaldi became the Doctor. Story 21. The movie version differs slightly from the book but quotes a bit better. Susan, all right, I'm not stupid. You're saying that humans need fantasies to make life bearable. Death. No. Humans need fantasy to be human, to be the place where the falling angel meets the rising ape. Susan. With tooth fairies? Hog fathers? Death, yes. As practice, you have to start out learning to believe the little lies. Susan. So we can believe the big ones? Death, yes. Justice, mercy, duty, that sort of thing. Susan. They're not the same at all. Death. You think so? Then take the universe and grind it down to the finest powder and sieve it through the finest sieve and then show me one atom of justice, one molecule of mercy. And yet you try to act as if there is some ideal order in the world, as if there is some rightness in the universe by which it may be judged. Susan. But people have got to believe that, or what's the point? Death. You need to believe in things that aren't true. How else can they become? Story 22. There is more in you of good than you know, child of the kindly West. Some courage and some wisdom, blended in measure. If more of us valued food and cheer and song above hoarded gold, it would be a merrier world. But sad or merry, I must leave it now. Farewell. The Hobbit. Story 23. Fine, I'll go, but I'm going to complain the whole time. I even have it as a keychain now. Story 24. Mrs. Buckman, you need a license to buy a dog, to drive a car. Hell, you even need a license to catch a fish. But they will let any but reaming asshole be a father. Tut. Parenthood. Story 25. We are born alone, we live alone, and we die alone. It is through friendship and love that we fool ourselves into believing that we are not alone. Some episode of Criminal Minds. Story 26. Even at 11, he observed that as often as things went wrong, they turned out right a ridiculous amount of the time. Story 27. I've heard a rant like this before. Matt Damon says in the film Dogma, it's unfortunately often applicable. Story 28. When you are young, your potential is infinite. You might be anything, you might be Einstein or DiMaggio. Then you reach an age when what you might be gives way to what you have been. You were not Einstein. You were not anything. That is a bad moment. Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. Story 29. The circumstances of one's birth are irrelevant. It is what you do with the gift of life that determines who you are. Pokémon, the first movie. Not bad for a movie based on a video game. Story 30. A tree is only as strong as its roots. A good life motto is to focus on the basics, which usually won't betray you. Story 31. Ships are safest in the harbor, but that's not what ships are for. You wait for the war to happen like vultures. If you want to help prevent the war, don't save the remnants. Save them all. Isaac Asimov. Story 32. You can make no mistakes and still lose. That is not a weakness. That is life. Jean-Luc Picard. Story 33. You can't keep blaming yourself, Marge. Just blame yourself once and move on. Homer Simpson. Story 34. Authority should derive from the consent of the governed, not from the threat of force. Story 35. This one from Cam on Modern Family is one I like. There are dreamers and there are realists in this world. You'd think the dreamers would find the dreamers and the realists would find the realists, but more often than not the opposite is true. You see, the dreamers need the realists to keep them from soaring too close to the sun. And the realists, well, without the dreamers they might not ever get off the ground. Story 36. It is possible to commit no mistakes and still lose. That is not a weakness. That is life. Picard. Story 37. When one can see no future, all one can do is the next right thing. Story 38. Did I do something brave to save my friends? Or did I finally find a way to kill myself? Quentin Coldwater, The Magicians. Story 39. I don't know how to put this, but I'm kind of a big deal. Ron Burgundy. Story 40. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. I don't know where the quote originated, but I first heard it a long time ago on an episode of the television series Naval Criminal Investigative Service. Story 41. Rosalind Russell in Auntie Mame. Life is a banquet and most poor suckers are starving to death. Story 42. Whoa, I didn't expect this to go off so much. Thanks for sharing, everyone. Here's mine from Rent. The opposite of war is not peace, it's creation. Story 43. It may help to understand human affairs to be clear that most of the great triumphs and tragedies of history are caused not by people being fundamentally good or fundamentally bad, but by people being fundamentally people. Good omens. Story 44. How did you go bankrupt? 2 ways. Gradually, then suddenly. The sun also rises. Ernest Hemingway. Story 45. Why do we fall, Bruce? So we can learn to pick ourselves up. Batman Begins. It always reminds me to keep going no matter what. Story 46. Shazam! My pipe is gone. Mystery Science Theater 3000. My brother and I use that all the time. Story 47. Those who labor never to wrong another see scant value in forgiveness. Story 48. Absolute honesty isn't always the most diplomatic nor the safest form of communication with emotional beings. Tars, the robot character in the film Interstellar. Story 49. Federal Bureau of Investigation investigator. Have you ever used the American flag in an act of fornication known as Betsy Ross Revenge? Applicant. You obviously know that I have because I applied to have that name trademarked the very next day. Federal Bureau of Investigation investigator. It was denied. Applicant. I know. Blind spot. Story 50. Pain or damage do not end the world, nor do despair or beatings. The world ends when you are dead. Until then, you have more punishment in store. Stand it like a man and give some back. Elswearingen, Deadwood. Story 51. Are you a Mexican or a Mexican? I think it's from Once Upon a Time in Mexico. I have thought of that line ever since I first heard it. Story 52. Once more into the fray. Into the last good fight I'll ever know. Live and die on this day. Story 53. A human being should be able to change a diaper, plan an invasion, butcher a hog, con a ship, design a building, write a sonnet, balance accounts, build a wall, set a bone, comfort the dying, take orders, give orders, cooperate, act alone, solve equations, analyze a new problem, pitch manure, program a computer, cook a tasty meal, fight efficiently, die gallantly. Specialization is for insects. Heinlein. Story 54. Life is a buffet, and most poor suckers are starving. Auntie Mame. Story 55. Bran. Can a man still be brave if he's afraid? Ned. That is the only time a man can be brave. Story 56. You are not your job. You are not how much money you have in the bank. You are not the car you drive. You are not the contents of your wallet. You are not your fucking khakis. Having grown up poor and later middle class but always one missed paycheck away from living on the streets, I've learned not to obsess over material things because none of that lasts. Everything around us is one big advertisement, constantly selling. That's just the world we live in. Story 57. We have one life that we live by and another life we learn by. In the movie The Naturalist with Robert Redford, it was written by Isaac Bashevis Singer. Story 58. Leave the problems of God to God and karma to karma. Today you are here, and nothing you can do will change that. You are alive and honored. Shogun by James Clavell. Just a nice reminder that when circumstances are out of your control, you are here in this moment. Enjoy it. Story 59. Everybody is a book of blood. Wherever we're opened, we're read. Clive Barker, Books of Blood. I have recited the litany against fear during times of abuse since I was a young teen in the 1980s. I have followed the Wiccan Rede, and it harm none, do what ye will, since the early 1990s. Story 60. When people are afraid to do their job right, they are certain to do it wrong. Violence is the last refuge of the incompetent. Both are from the novel Foundation by Isaac Asimov. Story 61. There are 3 kinds of people: dicks, pussies, and assholes. Pussies think everyone can get along. Dicks just want to fuck all the time without thinking it through. Assholes only want to shit all over everything. Pussies sometimes get mad at dicks because they get fucked by them. Dicks also fuck assholes. If they didn't, you'd have your dick and pussy covered in shit. Story 62. If you want an unreasonable result in your life, then you've got to be willing to be unreasonable. Story 63. I maintain my pride before men, but I abandon it before God, who drew me out of nothingness and made me what I am. From the Count of Monte Cristo, which I read in 1992. Story 64. You have the makings of greatness in you, but you must take the helm and chart your own course. Stick to it, no matter the squalls. Story 65. Dalliner, the foolishness of those who care and the brilliance of those who do not. The second group depends on the first but also exploits them, while the first group misunderstands the second, hoping the second will be more like the first. All their games steal our time second by second. Story 66. The X-Files. The field where I died, it was about reincarnation, if I recall correctly. At times I almost dream. I too have spent a life the sage's way, and tread once more familiar paths. Perchance, I perished in an arrogant self-reliance. Ages ago, and in that act a prayer, for one more chance went up so earnest, so instinct with better light let in by death, that life was blotted out not so completely, but scattered wrecks enough of it remain, dim memories as now when once more seems the goal in sight again. Robert Browning. It is the only place I have seen it used. Story 67. You have to be a good person because there are too many bad people. Story 68. If I had known it was harmless, I would have killed it myself. From A Scanner Darkly by Philip K. Dick. Story 69. She once told me that she could see herself and the kind of life she wanted to have. Kids, a husband, the suburbs. But she could not figure out how to get from point A to point B. Jodi Picoult, The Pact. Story 70. The hardest thing to do in this world is to live in it and be brave. This quote has helped me during my not-so-great days. I also had it tattooed on my arm. Story 71. Fittingly, I don't recall it perfectly. This building that housed too much joy and sorrow for me to remember accurately. It was a poem from a reading I attended as a teenager. Story 72. Perhaps to be too practical is madness. To surrender dreams, this may be madness. To see treasure where others see only trash. Too much sanity may be madness. And maddest of all, to see life as it is and not as it should be. I come in a world of iron to make a world of gold. Story 73. When you care about someone, hurt is part of the package. Beth Green, The Walking Dead. Story 74. I have to remind myself that some birds aren't meant to be caged. Their feathers are just too bright. And when they fly away, the part of you that knows it was a sin to lock them up does rejoice. But still, the place you live in is that much more drab and empty because they are gone. Story 75. I have two quotes. 1. Why blend in when you were born to stand out? Aquamarine. 2. Words spoken in the heat of anger are never from the heart. Felicity, an American Girl movie. Story 76. You can't just skip ahead to where you think your life should be. Lily, How I Met Your Mother. Story 77. Just remembered this one. That Frank. He lives inside of his own heart. That's an awful big place to live in. You take good care of that boy. Carl Childers from Sling Blade. We don't rent pigs. Lonesome Dove has always cracked me up. Story 78. People think there are two laws, one for the rich and one for everyone else. The truth is there is no law for the rich. Charlotte Ryan, The Unit. Story 79. More is lost by indecision than by wrong decision. Carmela Soprano. Story 80. Hope is a good thing, maybe the best of things, and no good thing ever dies. Story 81. It is possible to commit no mistakes and still lose. That is not a weakness. That is life. Story 82. Some motherfucker is always trying to ice skate up a hill. Story 83. Whoever saves one person saves the world entire. Schindler's List. Story 84. There are 206 bones in the human body, 207 when I'm watching Gossip Girl. This is my go-to quote. If I ever see something so amazing, I might get a boner from it. Story 85. Stop tailgating me, you pasty fool. I'm going to the restroom. Do you want to hold my hand? Story 86. Love is the ultimate outlaw. It won't adhere to any rules. The most any of us can do is sign on as its accomplice. Instead of vowing to honor and obey, perhaps we should swear to aid and abet. The words make and stay become inappropriate. My love for you has no strings attached. I love you for free. Story 87. From Gone with the Wind. Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. Story 88. Picture a wave in the ocean. You can see it and measure its height and the way sunlight refracts as it passes through. It is there and you know what it is, a wave. Then it crashes on the shore and is gone. But the water is still there. The wave was simply a different way for the water to be for a little while. Chitty talking about death and loss on The Good Place. I cry every time. Story 89. Not for him, Bubba. For me. Gundolin wants his hand back. Story 90. Special Operations, the line. It takes a strong man to deny what is right in front of him. When the truth is undeniable, he creates his own. It is such a shame it is not on digital storefronts anymore. That game was phenomenal. Story 91. The less declarative statements a man makes, the less apt he is to look foolish in retrospect. For Rooms, Quentin Tarantino. Story 92. Losing family obliges us to find our family. Not always the family that is our blood, but the family that can become our blood. From Finding Forrester, 2000. There are people in my life that I consider found family. I think of this quote often when we are together for holidays. Story 93. I think I'll give room service a jangle and have them send up some A to fee. Story 94. Way she goes. Ricky LaFleur from Trailer Park Boys after losing all the liquor money while gambling. Story 95. You have forgotten the face of your father. Stephen King, The Dark Tower. Story 96. In the movie The Devil's Advocate, the entire speech that Al Pacino gives about God and related topics is powerful. If I believed in God, which I do not, that is essentially how I would feel about him. Story 97. Kelsey, in this terrifying world, all we have are the connections we make. Story 98. Malkovich. You know how kids are. You sell them to a shitty planet and they think you are the bad guy. Please understand the horny bard does not represent us. Is that you, bowl of cherries? Story 99. As someone who has been given a lot of discouragement in my life, I have noticed that when people put you down enough, you start to believe it. The bad stuff is easier to believe. Do you ever notice that? Story 100. I've had to kill people, not out of spite or malice, but to preserve something greater than myself. It taxes me greatly, and I will always carry the scars. Paraphrased from Dean Koontz's Odd Thomas. Story 101. Moving on as a concept is for stupid people because any sensible person knows grief is a long-term project. Story 102. I like the phrase God does not play with dice, and I do not believe in coincidence. By very universum vivis vici, by the power of truth, I, while living, have conquered the universe. Story 103. Trust is a powerful weapon. Be careful of whom you hand it to. Story 104. These church walls were not made to keep fears out. You have to face them. The sound of music. Story 105. Love is not about grand gestures or the moon and the stars. It is just dumb luck. Sometimes you meet someone who feels the same way, and sometimes you are unlucky. One day you are going to meet someone who appreciates you for who you are. There are 7 billion people on the planet, and one of them will climb a moon for you. Story 106. There are other organizations out there. In time, I am sure they are going to spoon-feed you their own patented form of bullshit. Ignore the verbiage and look at what they are doing, what they are asking you to do, what sort of world they would have you build, and how they are going to pay for it. Deacon Fallout 4. Story 107. Don't forget who you are, because the world will not. Wear it like armor so it cannot be used against you. Tyrion Lannister, Game of Thrones. Story 108. He's not the sun. You are. Christina Young, Grey's Anatomy. Story 109. A bird sitting in a tree is never afraid of the branch breaking. Its trust is not in the branch but in its own wings. Story 110. The world of the heterosexual is a sick and boring life. Aunt Ida in Female Trouble. Story 111. It's a little too long to be a quote, but Septon Maribald's Broken Man monologue in A Feast for Crows stuck with me for years after I finished the book for the first time. Story 112. In Godzilla -1, two lines affected me. We are leaving you the future and live. They are simple lines, but I watched the movie during a rough time and cried at those moments. I never cry during movies. Even today I still tear up when I reach that scene. Story 113. I wish there was a way to know you are in the good old days before you have actually left them. Andy from The Office. Story 114. Beauty fades. That is why it is beautiful. I was not a big fan of League of Legends, but Kindred has some great lines. Story 115. With all the show-offs you roll with, can't you spot the unstable person? Story 116. They say there's just enough religion in the world to make men hate one another, but not enough to make them love. Angel Heart Lewis Cipher. Story 117. If you want to enjoy life, expand your world. You have to push your horizons out as far as they will go. Sinai Hanakoma. The world ends with you. Story 118. Whatever stuff souls are made of, his and mine are the same. Story 119. Do not have anything in your life that you cannot walk away from in 30 seconds. Story 120. It is not you who worries me. It is your inner thoughts that give me pause. Story 121. A heart can be broken, but it keeps on beating just the same. Ninny Threadgood. Story 122. We must all fear evil men, but we should fear most the indifference of good men. Story 123. A man does not die when he stops breathing or when his heart stops beating. A man dies when he is forgotten. To this day, I remember everyone I knew who has passed. Story 124. You can knock on both sides of a door. Sir Terry Pratchett, The Fifth Elephant. Story 125. Her death hit in waves. Not a flood, but water steadily lapping at her ankles. You could drown in 2 inches of water. Maybe grief was the same. Britt Bennett, The Vanishing Half. Story 126. Happiness can be found even in the darkest of times, if one only remembers to turn on the light. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. You have to do everything you can. You have to work your hardest. And if you stay positive, you have a shot at a silver lining. Silver Linings Playbook. Story 127. Until you get your man, you are dead out here on these blocks. AOB, go this way. Paid in full. Money-making Mitch. Story 128. I do not know. Story 129. Have you ever had a bowel movement that made you feel like you had slept for 12 hours? What about a urination? Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.